So one of the interesting angles, and Stephen, I wanted to ask you about this on the mental health issue, is whether or not the Trump phenomenon and him becoming president has led to an increase in anxiety among people generally. And I've read some stuff coming out of the US where therapists have said that there is now potentially a phenomenon called Trump anxiety, and people are actually paying money to see therapists to talk about their anxiety as a result of Trump. What do you think?
Well, I'll let the psychiatrist give the medical analysis, but I sort of think of it in this way a little bit, is that we have seen through neoliberal politics and through the advent of technology and just the whole way that society in the world has developed over the past 20 or 25 years, a massive increase in uncertainty. People used to have quite predictable lives, and people used to have a single career in their lives, and they used to be able to know that they were going to be able to send their kids to school, be able to pay off the mortgage and then retire and get the pension, and everything was sort of quite clear and quite certain. That's now gone completely the other way, and I, as a parent of kids in their 20s, I kind of worry about them a little bit because life is hard, life is uncertain. The probability is that it's going to be much harder for them to buy a property. The probability is that they won't have one career in their lives. There's a lot of uncertainty. We know people in their 40s and 50s who lose their jobs, and everything's become very uncertain. And the icing on the cake is Donald Trump, whose whole method of approaching the world is to create uncertainty. The whole thing of art of the deal is create the uncertainty, make the other side not know what they can expect. And we saw that actually when he did his first interview with the New York Times when he was running for the presidency. He was asked a lot of questions about foreign policy and the position the United States has always had, or the approach the United States has always had, has been the stabilising factor in global politics, and everybody knew and it was clear what the United States position was on things, and that created certainty in that people knew how the United States was going to respond, so everybody responded accordingly. But Trump said to the New York Times, I'm not going to tell you what my position is on anything. I'm not going to tell you what my position is on NATO. I'm not going to tell you what my position is on anything, because the last thing I want to do as a deal maker is tell people where I want to get to in the deal. And so he works in completely the opposite way. And so it would not surprise me at all if that leads to an increase in anxiety.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. What do you think, Tad, from this psychological perspective?
I think his style is part of it, but I think there's, I know in preparation for this you sent around some very interesting articles, including one by Brendan O'Neill, which I think kind of gets at some of it. He talks about people losing their armour in this modern world. I think of it in terms of social institutions. We used to have trade unions. Things were much more stable. People felt like they had this protection. Community seemed to be a more important thing. It wasn't as dog eat dog. And that has kind of stripped away. But I think this particular case of anxiety is actually the loss of a different kind of armour, because I think right up until November the 8th, there was a belief that there was a protective shield, that the Democratic Party and the political establishment would come through and keep things going as they were before, even though all the signs were, you can go back to Obama. Obama ran partly as a bit of an anti-establishment politician. The breakdown of the Democratic Party was already happening. Now it's all been revealed. It's all broken down. There's been a hostile takeover of the Republicans. The Democrats couldn't win the unlosable election. Actually, the political armour has fallen away. And I think if you go in the population, Trump anxiety is a minority phenomenon. And what's interesting is the mass movement is where a lot of the anxiety is. There's a lot of kind of self-help aspects to it, which when you look at other mass social movements, it's not really about quelling anxiety and self-help. People actually feel more confidence. And here they seem to be almost having the movement so they can retreat into like-minded others, into a bubble, because the old bubble that politics provided has fallen apart. Hillary didn't. There's a famous New York Times headline for a major feature a few days before the election, where Hillary is quoted as saying, "I'm the last thing that stands between you and the apocalypse." She was only half joking, but in some ways the apocalypse feels like it's come for people now because she couldn't save us from the apocalypse. And I think the anxiety is concentrated amongst people like that, whereas there's a whole bunch of American voters who are either just as indifferent as ever. For the world order, actually, I think you're absolutely right. America for a long time was the hegemon. It provided this umbrella. It sacrificed itself in order to run the world. And Trump's saying, actually, we can't do that anymore. US decline is so much, we're going to play a much more self-interested role. And interestingly, I think the political establishment that's been hit the hardest, except maybe Australia, where there seems to be nobody knows what to do about it, is Germany. There is big turmoil in German politics. They are the most panicked about Trump because the EU project kind of relies on there having been an American hegemon, and it's gone now. There's now a self-interested America. And that is all pretty destabilising. It's an interesting time. I don't think anxiety gets us to building a better movement. I think when people look after their own interests, they actually gain confidence and lose their anxiety.
That's really interesting.